In today's lesson, I'll talk about Active Directory. I'll show you how to install Active Directory on Windows 2016, how to check the status to make sure it's running, some of the reasons why we need to use Active Directory or why we would want to use Active Directory even in a small organization, and where some of the tools are with Active Directory that you may use constantly. So let's install Active Directory real quick. So I'm going to click my Start button here, the little Windows icon. I'm going to go to Server Manager. It's the easiest way to install this from a GUI. I'm going to add roles and features. Click Next. I want role-based or feature-based installation. In this screen, I want to make sure that my server name matches up to the name where I want to install Active Directory. Since I don't have any other servers configured on this computer right here, this server, I'm just going to use this one. How we can find out what our computer name is called is click on our File Explorer, right-click on this PC, go to Properties, and we can see that the computer name here matches up to our computer name here. So let's click Next. Now we go down to Server Roles. Within Windows, we can add many roles. Each of these roles may have some requirements, but we're going to just do 2 of them here. Okay. We also need to add features, which are some of the requirements of installing Active Directory. So we'll say Add Features. What we also need to do is we need to add DNS. DNS is critical for Active Directory to run properly in a domain setting. So let's add this feature as well. Okay, you're going to get a warning here. The validation process has found problems on the server, to which we might want to install features. So the reason why it comes up with this is we typically want a static IP address when we're installing DNS server. That's not necessary for this tutorial. However, typically in an environment where you want servers to remain the same IP address wise, you need this set. So if I had my server set to a static IP address, we wouldn't get this warning. We'll just click Continue. Let's click Next. Okay, Next again because it already added the features that I needed to. Active Directory Domain Services. Okay, that's just telling us a little bit more about it. Okay, DNS server, I'm going to install that as well. Click Next, and now I'm going to confirm that I'm installing all these roles and features. So let's click Restart Automatically. Okay, so we'll click Yes and Install. Now I'm going to pause the video here until it's done. This really should only take about 5 to 10 minutes based on what you already have on your server and how fast the server actually is. Now that I've restarted my server, I'm going to show you what it looks like when we first log in. Okay, Server Manager should automatically pop up and we'll see a few different things. Usually we only see these 2 boxes. Okay, so it started some services, it looks like. Okay, look, we now have a couple different more boxes enabled. Okay, so now we have 5 boxes. This is what we should see. Okay. Now, in order to actually run Active Directory, we need to promote our computer to a domain controller. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, okay, and I'm going to say promote this server to a domain controller. Okay, add a domain controller to an existing domain. No, we're not going to do that. Add a new domain to an existing forest. No, we're not going to do that because we don't need to add another domain to a forest. And then finally, we're going to add a new forest. Okay. I'm going to just type in my last name. I'm going to say .local. The reason I'm going to say .local is because it's not routed anywhere. Local is not a domain that we have on the internet, so the chances of us actually messing something up to websites that we actually go to is very minimal. So for this tutorial, you can change this to anything that you want. Your last name .local if you would like. Let's click next. Okay. So this is fine right here. Okay, so we definitely need DNS, and then we need the global catalog. Okay, we don't need to have this as a read-only domain controller at this point. Okay, directory services restore mode. This password is really important if we need to join other computers to the domain, join other domain controllers to the domain so they can talk back and forth. So let's set this real quick. Click next. Okay. A delegation for this DNS server cannot be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found. The reason it's not found is because we haven't created it yet. So we're going to escape out of that. We can't click on it right now, but it'll put it in there as soon as we create the server. Okay, it automatically found that my NetBIOS name, domain name, is going to be Williams. That's correct. So let's click next. Paths, that's great. We can change it later if we want to, but we generally won't want to change that. It's standard across all Windows domains. Okay, review options, great. Let's review these. It looks great. Let's click next. Prerequisites, it's going to look for a DNS server. Okay, it's going to give you a bunch of warnings. Okay, and all prerequisite checks passed successfully. Click Install to begin installation. Click Next. After the server has been promoted to a domain controller, the server will restart. And now notice the domain name here in /administrator. Okay, these are the only, or this is the only account that I have on this computer. So now I need to log in here. Okay. One of the other things that you'll notice is that I don't have any internet access. The reason why is since I've promoted this to a domain controller, the DNS has changed to itself. So I either need to add a forwarder to DNS to another resolver, or I need to change the DNS address to answer to something else. Okay. Now if we look, here's still my 5 core services. Okay, roles and servers. Okay, so let's go to tools, and we'll go down to Active Directory users and computers. Now you'll notice williams.local is my domain. Okay, let's look at one other thing before we do that. If I go into my File Explorer, right-click this PC, click Properties, you'll also see that I now have a domain. So williams.local. Before, this said workgroup. Okay. The full computer name also now reflects the name of the server plus dot whatever my domain is. Okay. So if we expand williams.local, I have a few built-in folders here. Let's look at domain controllers first. My domain controllers are going to show up here. Okay. This is the DC type global catalog that we selected when we were promoting the domain to a domain controller, or the computer to a domain controller. Okay. Computers will be listed here. Users will be listed here. You'll notice that I have a whole bunch of groups already assigned. These are security groups, and they have certain rights and privileges. We'll talk about that a little bit further when we get into group policy. Let's talk briefly about why we want to use Active Directory. Active Directory allows us to basically control anything on the domain if it's joined to the domain. So Windows computers, for example, have a lot of configuration that can be done through the server now. Okay. Additionally, all these groups, these security groups, are essential to make sure that Windows is running properly and to implement least privilege on the domain, essentially. Let's look at this real quick. Let's look at domain users. If I open up domain users, I can configure some information here. I'm going to click on members, and you'll notice that administrator is part of the domain users group. Any users that you add are going to be part of the domain users group at minimum. Okay, let's cancel out of that. Okay. Let's create a new user. So I'm going to right click and press new and go down to user. Let's type in my name. And we'll type in G. Williams for my logon name. Click next, and we'll pick a password real quick. Okay. User must change password at next logon. We'll go ahead and keep that. The other reasons, or the other functions here, user cannot change password. Maybe we want this to be a permanent account, or password never expires. We'll talk about that when we go into group policy, or account is disabled. Maybe we don't want to enable this account at the moment. So let's click next. We'll click finish, and now we see Greg Williams. If we go back into the domain users group, you'll notice that I am now a part of this group. Okay. If we double click on my name, I have a whole bunch more information that I can modify now that the account has been created. I can put a description in, put an office number in. These are all called attributes that I can add to a user's account. Attributes can be very helpful in determining what rights and privileges users have across the domain. Okay. We can also quickly add members to different groups. So if I want to add myself to the administrators group, I'm just going to type in admin administrators and check names. Okay, and you'll notice the group administrators comes up. Okay, apply and hit OK. Additionally, if we want to quickly get to some information on the account or change something really quick within the account, I'm going to right click on the person's name, and I can reset their password. I can disable the account. I can add them to a security group if I want to, or traditionally I'm just going to click properties and get back to that same menu. Okay, so in conclusion, we want Active Directory to be an essential part of our Windows process. If we're managing many, even as minimum as 10 Windows computers, and we want them to all be the same and function in the same manner and have the same security settings, Active Directory is a great way to accomplish that. Setting the server up is not very difficult either, as you saw.